So, Catherine, you guys kicked off an acoustic tour in Bournemouth at the beginning of the month, and you're going to be back in Northern Ireland next Tuesday, the 23rd of November, playing First Bangor Church. I've been following this tour on social media. It looks like you guys are having an absolute blast.
It has been amazing. It's been really fun, and we're so lucky to be finally back on the road after such a long time in the waiting. I mean, this tour was meant to happen in April 2020, and then it was pushed to September 2020, and then April 2021, and now finally we're here in November.
I noticed in Leeds when you arrived at the venue, there was randomly a choir out the front on the street singing "Carry You Home."
Yes, that was very special. I mean, it was a pretty good welcome. There's no pressure for Belfast, I'm just saying, but it was pretty good.
I've been lucky enough to see you guys perform now a handful of times, and even in a full band environment, what really stands out and shines are your harmonies. So I can't tell you how excited I am for next Tuesday night, because the thought of, getting to see you perform the songs stripped back in like a Bluebird Cafe style, it's going to be, that's why I'm saying anybody who's even thinking about getting a ticket, get one, because this is going to be a night that's going to live in the memory, right?
Well, it's going to be very unique as well, because it's just us, and we've done a lot of gigs with the band, and we sort of have crafted big sort of sets where we have all the bells and whistles. But our favorite part of the set has always been when it's just the two of us chit-chatting, talking a whole lot of rubbish, going off on one, having silly sibling bickering, and singing our songs that we've written. So that is definitely what's to be expected, hopefully, in the Belfast show, because it's very much about the two of us sharing the stories about the songs and how they came, and some of them you'll hear like as they were written, so without any kind of production. It's going to be very stripped back.
Are you finding that any of the songs, when you strip them back, you're surprised by the response they get and how well they work?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, lyrics have always been so important to Lizzie and I when we're writing. And sometimes they can get lost in the production when we chuck everything at it. We've got a full drum kit, we've got loads of cool different fills and keyboards and guitar sounds. And sometimes, although it feels great to jig to, the meaning of the song can be lost. And so when we suddenly strip it back and sing the lyrics that we've written with literally nothing else to hide away from, it sort of brings a very different side to the song out, if that makes sense.
It does. I noticed that since May, you guys have been out busking. You've been raising awareness of important climate change issues, and also raising money for some charities relating to that are near and dear to your hearts. What's that been like?
I mean, busking is really scary, and I don't think we enjoyed it in terms of it's hard, but it was so rewarding. And it was a really good thing for us to do. So we sort of came from the background of turning up at gigs, having sound checks, having a very sort of slick, very comfortable setup. And then after lockdown, we didn't start doing it until it became officially legal. But we were suddenly singing on the side of a road, competing with roadworks and hecklers and traffic and horns. And it was a lot, but it was amazing for us, because we were out there raising money. We got to raise a really good amount of money, but we also got to sort of really look back at our musicianship and practice things that we would never be comfortable singing in front of people, playing brand new songs that we just written to see how they went down. And it was like a real opportunity that I don't think we've ever sort of had before.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. In October of last year, you released your fourth album, Invitation, and this was an album that was written and recorded during lockdown and produced by Jonathan Quembe. I'm interested to know, was he just constantly on Zoom, or did you guys work away at stuff and then when you were happy with it, send it to him and trust his judgment?
It was a bit of both. Luckily we had worked with him a lot in person before. I think it would have been very different if we hadn't really worked with him and we went straight in from lockdown, but he knew a lot of the songs already. We would send him sometimes something as rough as a work tape that's literally just us singing into our phones. Sometimes we would send him a sort of almost finished demo that he would then rejig and make into a production. And the entire album was made via Zoom and email. A lot of emails.
There's in particular, there's a song on the album, Don't Be a Stranger, which evolved into a collaboration with Cam. How did that happen?
So it was basically a song that we really wanted to be a single. We were really excited about it as a track, but we wanted to have Cam on it. We just thought that she would be an amazing asset to that song. And sort of ordinarily, when these things happen, a lot of the time you go through the sort of regular channels where you get their manager to talk to your manager and you try and wangle it. But we were just sort of sat at home and we sent her a DM on social media, and she just replied saying, "Yep, sure, send it to me." And like a week later, we got her vocal and we mixed it all together, and it was just amazing. And she filmed herself recording it, so we had visual content to use, and she was just so amazing. It just like fell into our laps. It was perfect.
Um, I'm looking back on your career over the past couple of days, and I would have thought certainly one of the highlights so far would have been whenever Cam presented you guys with the CMA Jeff Walker Global Artist Award at the CMA Songwriters Series. This is all a mouthful in London in 2019. Was that a very special night?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was actually quite embarrassing because we didn't know that it was happening. I mean, I think it might have been, it was good that we didn't know, because I think if we had known, we would have acted differently. But like just going on stage and singing a song, and that being like, or not even that, we didn't even know we were going to sing a song. We just went on stage to say hello, but we were kind of like, this is really uncomfortable. I'm not sure why we're standing on stage. We don't want to hijack their like songwriter series. And then Cam was like, oh, we want to present you with this CMA. And we were like, oh my God, everyone's looking at us. This is so blah. But yeah, it was very like special. In hindsight, I look back and go, that was a very special moment because we got to sort of experience it with the biggest country music fans in the country. Everyone that loves country music is in that building. And then we got to sing because everyone, so it was a very perfect way of receiving that award actually.
There's a really lovely collaboration on the Invitation album with James Blunt, a song called Halfway. I know he released that as a single, and at the beginning of last year, you played some shows opening for him. What was that like? Because he obviously has a reputation of being a bit of a party boy.
He does have that reputation, although it wasn't our experience because he had his kids on the road and he was very responsible. So um, we are the opposite to party people. We like to be in bed with a cup of tea as soon as the gig is over. So it suited us just fine. But it was great actually. Like we didn't really know what to expect because the halfway collaboration came around so randomly. Like he got in touch with us and asked us to be involved in it. We recorded it. He was in Ibiza at the time, so we literally organized all over FaceTime, and then we just record. And then suddenly we were like, okay, we're going on the road with him, and we sang halfway with him every night as well. So it was very special, and actually was one of the first proper shows that we did, just Lizzie and I. And so we kind of realized there and then that this was a different type of setup that could work really well when we do it as a whole gig, because we've never really been brave enough to. We always do like a few songs and then we have the band come on. But this time we were just doing this as a whole gig, which is why we're so excited for Belfast, because it's going to be that kind of vibe again.
In 2019, you also toured Australia with David Gray and you played some shows in Europe with Jack Savoretti. Is that seems like a genius move. Is there a thought behind the way that you guys deliberately go out of your ways to, you're labeled as a country group, but you will perform for audiences who, some of which would maybe never go near country or have a preconceived notion of it. Is that deliberate or is that just the way opportunities have happened?
Probably both. I mean, very much like some things just happen and we're very much yes people. We don't want to say no to opportunities that come around, but also we kind of have heard along the lines and like the whole time we've been doing this career that people come up and say, I'm not a country music fan, but I do really like the Dixie Chicks, or I'm not a country fan, but I do really like. And I think that what we found is that especially in audiences that aren't in the US, like you could think you're not a country fan, but actually really love a lot of country music. So it's really good for us to go out and play to non-country fan audiences, because a lot of the time they are fans of the music, but there's such a sort of stigma, or like not even a stigma, there's such a general like assumption of what country music is. And I think that it's so broad and wide and like you could do so much with it that more people would be fans of it if they knew that, if that makes sense.
It does. You know, following on from what you've just said, you have performed, haven't you, at, is it CMC Rocks in Australia? Have you played that event?
Yes, we have. We
Right.
have. That was a real highlight.
See, that's interesting because I've observed, like over the past few years, it's noticeable that more and more of the big American country acts are adding Australian legs to their tours. As an act that have, come from the UK, played over there, what's the why do you think country music has exploded over there? Obviously, it works very well with the weather, but do you think it's just now with streaming and YouTube, like we've said, a different audience is being turned on to it?
Yeah, so I thought that too when we were in Australia and we were seeing this huge country music culture that just does not exist in the UK. I mean, the culture exists, but not to the same level.
Mhm.
And we were realizing while we were there, like we went to the CMC Rocks Award ceremony and we saw these Australian acts that are out there and like the huge amount of like Australian tours that American acts go on. And we were sort of thinking, oh, like we're a little bit behind in the UK. We've got a few years to catch up because they've been interested in country for years and years and years. And I do think the culture lends itself better to country music maybe. But a lot of the things I think it's down to is just that like we're just catching up. It's I feel like actually England itself is behind Ireland and like Northern Ireland and Scotland. Like we find when we tour the UK, our best audiences and our most engaged audiences are Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. I mean, we have really great audiences in England too, but it's like it seems to sort of have trickled into different areas and it's more embraced in like in other countries, basically.
That's very interesting because, yeah, you do have that first-hand experience. Thinking back, your first album, From Where We Stand, came out in remarkably now 2014. And, again, looking at your sort of backstory, it dwelled on me that yourselves and the Shires, from what I remember, sort of burst onto the scene around the same time. And I remember it was also whenever Nashville, the TV show, was doing a lot to reinvent the stigma of country music and make it trendy. C to C was beginning to really become a well-established event. The big American acts were coming over to play. They were also given a chance for the best of UK country to perform at it as well. Chris Country was on air 2015. We launched Downtown Country. Do you ever dwell on that? Like just how perfect your timing was?
Yeah, I mean, we say that all the time when people go, oh, how does it feel like it was such a sort of successful start to your career? And we always say we couldn't have timed it better. We were so lucky with the timing. We had so much support from so many outlets. And also we were doing it with another act that was also on the part of the narrative, part of the movement. And I think it would have been so much slower and harder if it was just us or if it was just them. Like we needed to sort of be in it together and show that this was a thing that we were all part of. And the scene has just grown so much. Like there's a huge amount of UK country acts out there. And it just, yeah, I feel like our timing was just, we were so lucky.
It has really grown, but nobody has sort of enjoyed the level of success of yourselves and the Shires. And when I go back to both your and their first album and then the most recent albums, naturally enough, any artist that's interesting or enjoys longevity, there's quite a shift in musical direction. The Shires would tell me as they got bigger and the venues got bigger, the sound had to get bigger and they needed more up-tempo stuff. Very interested to know what along the way has influenced your musical direction.
I think that there's an element of what the Shire said about you want the sound to be bigger, you want the big gigs to feel bigger. There's a huge amount of like pressure, I think, when writing, where you picture the tours that you're going to be taking these songs on, and you want them to sort of suit that kind of venue. But for us, our most favorite moments of every gig, no matter what the venue, is the songwriting, the story, and just the vocal. So I think for us, we found that we haven't really been influenced necessarily to change our sound. We've just felt more opportunity to explore where else we could take it because we've been given the freedom with the most wonderful fan base who are just interested in the songwriting to just go and try things that we never would have, like work with people that are not remotely country and see what comes out of that, work with really country songwriters and producers and see what happens. And it's just basically lent us the opportunity to like expand and try different things that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if we hadn't achieved a certain amount of success.
Off the back of this tour, is there any thought at all of maybe releasing, say, a live unplugged album?
Yes, we always talk about that, always. And our musicians, when they listen to this interview, they'll be like, yes, please do it. Because they're like, we do have like a very unique setting when we're on the road, we're in a bubble, we're not sort of really talking or to anyone else. You're only hanging out with the people you're on the road with. And when we do sound check, we workshop songs and we try different versions of them. And we've even reworked 2 songs on the tour that have been like different versions of these tracks. And it'd just be really cool to have a recording of that. So yeah, we might be definitely going down that route.
So listen, Catherine, really appreciate your time as always. Ward Thomas, they play First Bangor Church next Tuesday, 23rd of November. Tickets are available now, and I honestly am so looking forward to it.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me.